Hi, I'm Tracy Matthews, Business Advocacy Committee Liaison for the Campbell County Chamber of Commerce. And today I'm talking with Dr. Timothy Hallinan, who's running for House District 32. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning.
So, what do you feel the key responsibilities are in this role?
Well, I think the main responsibility is to represent the people in the district, and I think I do that fairly well. Then the next responsibility, I think, is to study the issues that come before the legislature and to vote on them. So that's the essence of the job, I think.
Excellent, thank you. What can the state do to hold steady or decrease the cost to ensure sustainability for businesses in the city, county, and state of Wyoming?
Well, I think the main thing that the state legislature can do is to keep taxes low and to keep spending low consequently. We have to meet our deficit in our budget, and that's going to be tough this year around. So that's our biggest job, is to set our budget and to cause that the taxes are kept low to allow businesses to operate well in our state.
Excellent. What process would you use to determine how the SLIB money is distributed?
Well, I think that the SLIB board, which is the governor and the main elected offices in our state, I think they need to look at the long-term consequences of what they're going to do with this CARES money. And I don't think that we need to be building a lot of structures around the state that need to be kept up in the future. So I think that's going to be a tough thing for them to address the issues, because it's mainly in regard to healthcare facilities that the SLIB board has their responsibility. I think there's going to be demands for medical facilities in small towns that may not be able to support them in the future. And I think it's going to be the responsibility of the SLIB board to see that those expenses are made in such a way that they're not going to be a burden on future taxpayers around the state.
Thank you. And lastly, you have a couple minutes to discuss anything else that you want the voters to know about you, or your ideas on certain.
Okay, probably my major issue right at this time is to see that the state budget has cuts. We need to cut about $200 million off of the revenue of the state obvious revenue expenses, and then about $200 million off of the school foundation expenses. That's going to be the tough part. The state set up a committee back in 2016 that looked at the deficit in the schools at that time, and they thought that they could cut $200 million from the school budget at that time. The legislature has not done anything with that plan that was set up by the Senate and the House committees. So I think we need to look at those cuts and perhaps adopt majority of those. The other thing I think we need to do is, since we have a $1.5 billion deficit in the next biennium, we're going to need to look at other sources of income. I don't think that we're going to be able to cut the state budget by $1.5 billion. I think that's unrealistic. I think that we do need to look at the issuing of revenue bonds by the state, probably in the amount of about $500 million. That sounds big, but it's a big problem we're facing with $1.5 billion. So that 500 million plus about 500 million out of our state savings is probably going to be enough to allow our budget to function. So with the cuts then set in place, with the borrowing that we're going to have to do, and with the reduction in our savings account, we should be able to come up with the required 1.5 billion that we're in deficit. So that's a big job that we're going to have to do in this next session of the legislature. The legislature has really not looked at borrowing money previously, but in view of the COVID effect on our tourism business, which is a major part of our income in the state, which I believe is a temporary cut, I think that we possibly can come up with the money after this 2-year period that we won't have to borrow any further. So I think that that's a reasonable plan, that we need to look at borrowing some money in the short term to get us past this difficult time. Right now is a good time to borrow money. I think we can get it for about 1 or 2%. And do that over 20 years, we can pay that off at 25 million a year, approximately. And that we might be able to even come up with the money to pay it off before that 20 years is up. So that would be the ideal response. So I think that's calling for some new functions or new actions by the state legislature and the governor to authorize this kind of a borrowing by the state. So that's what I mainly want to see happen. I want to see the state step up and borrow the money that we need to operate the state government and our school system, because we can't cut by $1.5 billion. So that's my main issue this period.
Thank you.